Songbird. Opening his eyes was a chore. Riman was chained up against the cold, damp cave wall. He was exhausted, thirsty, hungry, weak. But he was taken out of the cage, meaning he could barely feel his brother's presence anymore, so he had to try and see him to make sure. There he was. The cage wasn't too far from the wall. It looked like Remus was still breathing. He wouldn't be sure until his captor was done with him and put him back, though. Drink up, little songbird, the witch ordered in a slow, smooth tone. Woman felt the cup at his lips and couldn't help a sip. He was so thirsty. His body was betraying him. Realizing what he was doing, he turned his head away. It was a dumb plan. Going on strike, hoping the witch would, what, give up? He didn't know. It was the only thing he could do, though. He tried everything else. They both had. Still as stubborn as ever, are you, songbird? The witch mused. Woman glared at how amused they sounded. Now, don't look at me like that, precious one. All this could be over if you'd just sing me a little song, they told him with a playful tap to his nose. Woman let out an aggressive breath, the closest he could manage to a scoff. Even if he wanted to sing his heart out, he doubted his voice would still work. He didn't have the energy to draw enough breath. Matei! Show your face! A voice called from the distance. Woman managed to glance in the direction it came from. Outside. Freedom was there where this mystery voice was. There was a flash and he was back in the cage, feeling Remus's warm body next to his. They were both lying down. Woman had lost the strength to stand on his feet a few days ago. At least he thought it was a few days. It was hard to tell. Exhaustion made periods of sleep an unreliable tool, and he wasn't sure how regularly the witch tried to feed him. The witch huffed and marched over to the entrance of the cave. Woman could hear them arguing with someone, but he couldn't tell what was said. He wondered why they had chosen to put him back for his visitor. Usually they left him hanging on the wall for much longer before putting him back in the cage. Evidently they didn't want someone else to see their project. He wasn't sure what they wanted. Their request went from a song to a smile to his hand in marriage. Woman was the heir to their father's throne. Remus was already the general of the armies, a position he delighted in. Both of them going missing probably had the whole kingdom up in arms. But they were yet to be saved. Remus, usually unbothered by anything, had fallen down a spiral of terrible thoughts of their own horrid ends after about a week of capture. Woman had never thought he'd be the one to hold out longest in these circumstances. He'd been trying to keep his brother hopeful, mused about the epic adventure their friends, Patton and Logan, were on in search of them, and how they maybe brought along a handsome lone hero who saw they were not fit for the adventuring life and vowed to make sure they'd survive the journey. Okay, so he added a love interest in for himself. He was allowed. Remus stopped teasing him about his imagined knight in shining armor after what Roman thought was another reach. So he tried to make it amusing for his brother. Imagined Logan, their scholarly friend, getting so caught up in a lecture on the various fauna and flora they saw that he tripped and fell down a hill in mud. Or Patton, who started out as the caretaker of the castle's animals, cooing over a flower that exploded into colorful pollen right in his face. He hadn't heard his brother laugh well, he supposed he hadn't heard him laugh with his own voice since before they got locked up in here. He'd stopped reacting to the imagined misfortune of their friends and Roman's future royal advisors a few days ago. Not too long before Roman lost the strength to stand. Remus hadn't bothered to even try past the second week. He hadn't opened his eyes in a long time either. Roman was worried. He was still staring at the pathway that led to the outside, longing to see his friends appear through it, though he didn't recognize the voice at the front. But this was how he saw the ink-black creature enter, but only because its eyes were a shining violet. Literally, they were glowing. Roman tried to force himself to stand on instinct. That was a cat! He had to protect his brother. Not the smartest move. He couldn't stand, and trying to do so only rattled the cage and alerted the cat of their presence. The cat halted, with slow progress through the cave, and looked up, staring at the cage. Go away, don't touch him! Woman thought furiously. Then the glowing brightened, and there stood not a cat, but a person. They were wearing a cloak, which obscured their face somewhat. All Woman could make out for sure was that they were pale and slender and clearly a witch, considering the use of advanced magics. The witch approached the cage carefully. What did they muttered in a low voice as they looked at the cave entrance nervously. Grab. I'm just supposed to grab the stone. But I can't leave you here. But how am I supposed to transform if I'm carrying you both? But if I leave you here, you'll definitely die. The still glowing purple eyes looked them over. Look at you both. You're starving and molting. Probably sick too, they muttered. A good witch? Could they be so lucky? That would explain why Roman had been returned to his cursed form upon the mysterious visitor's arrival. If they were allies with this witch, then surely they would free the princess upon discovery. And it seemed that, human or not, the princess would still be freed by this kind witch. Janice is going to kill me, the witch groaned as they rushed away. Moments later, they appeared again. Okay, I got a stone, they said, showing a yellow glowing stone that they put in a pocket of their trousers. And if I pack you two up, I can carry you out of here. It might be a bit bumpy, but just until we are out of sight. Jay is distracting Matei. It'll be fine, they promised, soothingly, as they opened the cage and gently lifted both Roman and Remus up with their hands. Roman had spent most of his time for what had to be at least a month in this form, and he was still not a fan of how big everything was. He didn't know what he looked like exactly. He only knew that Remus looked like a sparrow with green feathers, though they were tipped silver at his tail and wings. The young witch took out a dark handkerchief. It's clean, don't worry, they whispered, as they gently put both transformed princes into the piece of fabric. They carefully tied the corners together. Roman could just barely see through an opening in the fabric. They were put down. There was a violet flash, and then they were picked up again. The progress was slow, the good witch clearly making an effort not to make the journey as comfortable for them as possible. Roman nudged his brother, speaking to him in his mind as they had since they were kids. Remus, we are getting out of here, he told him. Remus's thoughts stirred. But there was no real response. Roman's heart beat anxiously in his chest. This connection was second nature to them both. If even this line of communication was fading, then his brother was in an even worse state than Roman had ever imagined. Hang on a little longer, Roman pleaded nervously as he saw the light at the end of the cave approach. There were two figures standing in their way, one holding his shepherd's staff, and the other gesturing wildly. He could hear their conversation as the cat that carried them snooped past. Go back to your tower, Janice. Don't you have a kitten to feed rather than accuse me of theft? The witch that had stolen them from their home sneered. He'd never heard them upset before. Mattei, I made no such accusations. I merely inquired whether or not you could help me locate my transmutation stone. The other individual said smoothly, a slight hiss in his voice that made the suave tone a little threatening. After all, if I had proof that you stole from me, especially something so valuable, there would be nothing left of your little cave, they explained, and the witch, Mattei, shrunk back. The witch carrying them hurried over to the trees near the cave entrance, where they were put down. Woman felt the cat form curl around them, keeping them warm. Minutes later, footsteps approached. What do you have there, Virgil? The voice wondered. They were picked up again by the cat witch, who, as far as could tell, was picked up by the other and held to the hissing witch's chest. There was a displeased hum and then a flash. They were somewhere much warmer and lighter now. The cat was put down, and then there was a flash, and their package was held in the witch's human hands. You shifted to human form in the caves. Why? The witch named Janice asked in a tone that reminded Roman of when his dad talked to them when they pulled a dangerous stunt when they were younger. I had to, the other witch, Virgil, Janice had called him, insisted. Next thing Roman knew, their bundle was open, and they were shown to the other witch. He didn't look much older than them, maybe later 20s, but barely. The witch had peculiar scarring on the left side of their face. A set of yellow reptilian eyes studied them, and their face softened. I see, they sighed. Virgil nodded and put them down on a dresser and walked around the room. Here, he said. Woman could see them and Janus the Yellowstone. Instantly the other witch shifted to a more human appearance, bore the yellow reptile eyes, and let out a sigh of relief. Thank you, they said. Woman's eyes finally refused to stay open any longer, keeping him from further observing his new captors or hosts. That was still to be determined. Woman was leaning towards the ladder, though. Safe. They might actually be safe. They didn't catch you, so I suppose it's fine, Jenna said, now no longer hissing their S's. But please don't take a risk like that again next time. Stick to the plan and we can return later with a new plan to retrieve whatever you are worried about, Jenna stated, walking towards the dresser Roman and Remus were on. Peculiar collaboration, they mused. I know, but I don't think they'd survive in that cave for another day, Jay, Virgil argued. Woman could hear water boiling. If they find out you are not a pet, Janice started. I know. Do you think they'd mind jam? Virgil wondered. Jam might be easier to swallow for them than fresh berries at this point. What are you doing with that water? Janice wondered. Getting rid of any bacteria. I'm not risking exposing them to anything, Virgil stated. Janice chuckled and then seemingly addressed them. Who do you two belong to? They mused. Mattei is a kleptomaniac of the worst kind, chasing the high of finding the most precious thing to powerful people and making it theirs. Gives witches a bad name, they huffed. Was that it? That witch took them to have what they felt was most precious to their parents? And once they had them, they tried to take their own most precious treasures? They'd taken their freedom, broken Remus's spirit. Evidently they were still deciding what would hurt Roman most to give up to them. His own spirit, his songs, his heart. Here we go, Virgil announced, now close by. Roman felt something being held against his beak, and he automatically took a sip from the freshly purified water. It was heaven. But he was not most in need. Convinced that it wasn't poisoned, he pulled away and nudged Remus with his wing. A gallant little hero, huh? Virgil mused as they moved away. Moments later, Roman felt his brother's presence in his mind return. Oh? He wondered. They both had some innate magic, not uncommon amongst royal bloodlines. It allowed them both a telepathic link, and Roman could occasionally cast a spell while singing. Remus could also cast spells, only he could never be sure if his magic would do what he asked. Not that he minded. He thought it was funny. I'm here. We're both okay, Roman assured him. All right, little one. Now let's try some jam, okay? Virgil suggested gently. Where? Remus wondered. Not sure, but they are good witches, I'm sure of it. They saved us, Roman promised his brother. It was quiet for a bit, and then, that's tasty. He's cute. Guess your shining knight came after all. Except it's a gloomy witch, Remus mused. Woman wished he had the strength to look upon their savior. Evidently his friend thought he'd taken a great risk even transforming in Matthei's cave. All that, for what he thought were mere birds. Good job. Okay then. Now it's your turn. Please drink some, Virgil pleaded. Woman didn't even hesitate. The water was cold after Virgil boiled it. It tasted like it was right from the spring it originated from. That's it. Now some jam, Virgil said, as he took away the now empty spoon. Woman thought it was a spoon. Anyway, the spoon returned to him with some jam this time. Sweet, sweet jam. There you go. You'll be back to your fanciful self in no time. Have you ever seen feathers like that? Virgil asked Janice as Woman felt his strength returning as his small body processed the food gratefully. No, and the way the red one refused the water despite clearly being in need. To prioritize another creature over himself would take some level of conscious thought. These aren't ordinary birds, Virgil. I'll have to do some research. Someone is looking for these two. Will you be alright on your own for a bit? Janice asked. Woman opened his eyes and saw that the yellow-eyed witch was putting on a traveling cloak. Virgil, on the other hand, had put away their own, which left their face bare for Woman to witness. They were very handsome. Violet eyes matching the purple hair that fell across the left side of their face. Gentle features making for a friendly face. Remus was right. Their savior was very cute. Sure, I'll be looking after these two, no problem, Virgil promised as he put away the spoon again and started walking around to gather some things, giving Woman a chance to take in the room they were in now. It was a round room, with dark wooden floors and furniture. The walls were made from dark grey stones. It would have looked gloomy if not for the three big windows that were spread around the wall, letting in plenty of light. From what Roman could tell, based on the bookcase, potion-making workstation, and the two desks on opposing sides of the room, this was their host's study. What are you doing now? Janice asked curiously. Well, I'm not going to make them a cage. It feels wrong to put them in one. But they need their own space, so Woman couldn't quite see what Virgil had gathered, but there was a purple flash of light, and there now stood a sort of side table, except it held a bird bed, surrounded by some grassy ground, and a rock formation with a nest at the top. There, Virgil said, as he picked Roman and Remus up, who were now at least sitting upright, though neither was ready to stand. They were put in the nest and could overlook their temporary home. Woman could now see the two feeding trays that held some fresh water and jam at the bottom of their rock. He reached for them, but they were too far away. Easy there. First see if you can keep down what I gave you. Okay, Princey? Woman perked up. Did he know? Princey? Janice wondered. Well, yeah. With the red and the gold, he's a princely little bird, Virgil explained. Oh, of course. He was a little disappointed, but also flattered. Janice flicked their wrist, and suddenly Roman saw something glistening to his right. Romy? Remus thought to him. Roman looked up and saw their reflections. For the first time he saw his own cursed form. He too looked like a sparrow. His feathers were scarlet red, with golden tips at his wings and tail. Though there was a bit of jam on his chest. That wouldn't do. With a half Roman print his feathers, much to his brother's amusement. You are filthy too, you heathen, Roman pointed out. Remus huffed, but indulged in his brother and cleaned off the bit of jam that had made its way onto his shoulder, or however you call the bird equivalent of that. They recognize themselves in the mirror, Janice mused. Yeah, they are clever, Virgil nodded. And lucky that you found them when you did. I'll be back soon. Don't open the door for anyone and take care, okay? Janice instructed. Virgil sighed. Yes, Dad, he drawled sarcastically. Janice gave them a playful push. I raised you since you were 10. I'm practically your father, they pointed out. Virgil chuckled. I'll be careful. Good luck, he said, and then Janice vanished. Virgil turned back to them with a smile. He reached out and stroked the woman over his head. It felt nice. It also left him a bit flustered, especially since his brother's laughter echoed in his head. If he wasn't so relieved to have him back to his old self, he'd probably have snapped. The finger left his head. You two will be okay, Virgil promised as he stroked Remus across his chest, much to the woman's chagrin. In an embarrassing impulse, the woman snapped at Virgil's finger. He didn't actually bite him, but the gesture was enough to make Virgil retreat. Okay, hands off the Duke, Virgil noted. Remus snickered in their heads. Guess I should introduce myself. I'm Virgil, they him. I know, not a traditional witch name, and witches typically abandon gender as a concept. Yada yada yada, Virgil said dismissively. Woman hadn't even thought of that. But it was true. Witches always used they them. At least, that was what Roman was led to believe. Virgil moved away from their little oasis and started rummaging about, pulling up books and papers and settling at his desk as they continued talking. I grew up in a little farm town. My parents kept me around for the first 10 years of my life, raised me with he/him pronouns, and I never minded. They feel right to me. But then the local bigots started to, well, my parents worried they wouldn't be able to keep me safe. So they dropped me off with Janice. Jay ran away from their coven when they were 12, and had been using magic to appear as an adult whenever they left the tower they'd claimed. In reality, he was like 16 when my parents begged him to keep me safe and teach me the magic I was born into. They hugged me and said they were proud of me, and that's the last time I talked to them. Virgil's face became a little melancholy. It broke Roman's heart, though it was a devastatingly beautiful sight. I don't talk about it with Jay. They did their best raising me the last 11 years. So you got him for them. It's not like you'll tell anyone, right? He joked. You'll be in for a big surprise, Remus pointed out. Though Roman could tell he felt bad for their savior as well. They'd been separated from their parents for only a month or so. To be away from them for years. That sounded horrible. Roman tried using his voice. He wanted to say, I'm sure they'd be proud of you. Naturally, it came out as a few chirps, but they made Virgil light up. Oh, you got your voice back. That's good, he exclaimed. We'll see how you two feel in an hour, and then we can try eating and drinking some more. With some luck, we'll have you two moving about by the evening, though it might take a while before you can fly. One step at a time, right? He offered. Woman let out a displeased chirp. Their current lodgings were much better than where they were less than an hour ago, but he wanted to break the curse and go home to his friends and family, and thank their savior properly, and bring him home to be celebrated as the hero he was. I know, Princey. You probably can't wait to take to the skies. Huh? Virgil glanced out the window. Can't say I blame you, he sighed longingly. They sat there in contemplation for a minute, before getting up and moving about again. Woman and Remus watched as he grabbed all rings of materials and started to move about the house, hammering pieces of wood to the wall and connecting them with thick threads, only using his magic to summon more supplies. Woman turned his reflection and saw to his displeasure that Virgil hadn't been exaggerating when he said they were molting. He started preening his feathers, getting rid of the ones that were beyond saving, and trying to make himself somewhat presentable while he waited for Virgil to be done. What is he doing? Remus wondered, clearly not as concerned with getting rid of his unruly feathers. It suited him, honestly. Why don't you ask him? The woman suggested. Remus huffed, but let out a loud chirp of his own. Roman could feel his displeasure at the dainty sound of his cursed voice. Virgil paused and looked up at him and sent him a smile. Give me a minute and I'll get you a snack. Gotta finish this first, they said. He kept on working, and Roman soon realized what he was making. It's a walkway! They're making sure we can move through the room once we get to our feet, even if our wings won't work, he realized. Even if they did work, we'd never flown before. We'll probably fall flat on our faces. Though you won't mind him tenderly nursing you back to hell, Remus teased. Roman didn't care, though. This was so thoughtful. Virgil had been so wonderful to them this whole time. Roman wished he could tell them who he was right now, but his means of communication were limited. Maybe once he got back to his feet, he could figure something out with the things he found across the room. There, it's not perfect, but it'll do, right? Virgil said as he turned towards them. Roman let out a few cheerful chirps, Remus sticking to one chirp of approval. Glad you like it. Now, for food, Virgil said as he walked towards the cabinet and took out a pouch. I'll get you fresh berries and seeds and whatnot soon. But right now, let's try the jam again with a little extra kick, he mused as he turned to the potion-making station. Virgil dropped some of the bag's contents into a mortar and grinded them for a while. There, that should be enough, they muttered as he brought the mortar over to their little bird oasis and sprinkled the powder into the jam. He put the mortar aside and mixed the jam thoroughly with a spoon before scooping some up and offering it to Roman. This should help your body recover. It's gotten me through some nasty injuries, he offered. Roman didn't need to be told twice. He eagerly ate the jam from the spoon, and almost as soon as he swallowed it, did he feel strength seeping into him. Not just that, but a glance at the mirror told him that the mixture seemed to encourage the growth of replacement feathers. They were still small, but if Virgil would give him some of these mixtures a few more times, he might look presentable by nightfall. While Virgil fed Remus some, Roman tried out standing up. His legs wobbled and he collapsed again. Gotta be patient, Princey. You'll get there. You looked seriously neglected. That won't go away in a few hours of decent care. Not even with magic involved. Little steps, Virgil said encouragingly. Roman let out a displeased chirp. Witchy boy is right, Ro. Remember when I broke my leg and you broke your arm? Even after the bones were healed, it took a bit before we could use them again like we used to, Remus offered, after he swallowed his spoon of jam. Roman huffed. They were both right, but he didn't have to like it. Virgil slowly reached out a hand, asking permission to touch him. Roman bent his head to allow Virgil to stroke his feathers. I'll do my best, Virgil promised softly before putting down the spoon and heading to one of the desks with a sigh. Enough stelling, they muttered as they settled down. Roman observed Virgil shift through papers and books with a focused frown as he happily daydreamed of a triumphant return to the palace with him by his side. Would he accept a courtship from him? Besides him, Remus was getting bored with his space, and with nothing else to do, he slowly drifted off. Roman supposed he had the right idea. He snuggled up to his brother in their little nest and allowed a truly restful sleep to take him for the first time in ages. He woke up to hushed voices. You don't want to join me? Get some sun? It was Janice who spoke. Virgil hesitated. No, no, I'm not feeling up to people today. Besides, I want to stick with our guests, even if Mattei doesn't come looking for them. They seem like they might try to fly the second they wake up. Princey especially. They aren't ready for that yet. Roman believed without a doubt that Virgil truly worried for them, but he also got the feeling that he was making excuses. He sincerely didn't want to go wherever Janice was talking about, but didn't want to elaborate on the why. Can I come? Remus chirped, forgetting that they couldn't hear him. The witches looked up and saw Remus jump in his spot, much to Roman's annoyance. The nest wasn't that big. Do you want to accompany me, Duke? Janice asked with a bemused smile. Remus chirped excitedly, almost leaping out of the nest, completely disregarding the fact that he couldn't fly, and was not strong enough yet to properly catch his fall. Luckily, Janice and Virgil had been within reach. Janice deftly caught Remus in his hand and placed him in the breast pocket of his cloak with a smile. Someone is definitely feeling better. Still, just to be sure, Virgil muttered as he fed Remus some more jam. Riman must have devoured his portion under the bemused chuckles of their current caretakers. They turned their attention to him. How about you, Quincy? The glamoured witch wondered, as Virgil offered him a bit of jam as well. Woman wouldn't mind seeing the outside and figuring out if they were still in their kingdom, and how far they'd have to travel to get to the capital. Surely, if they could catch the attention of someone who knew them. But Remus could tell him if he saw something interesting, and Virgil needed an excuse to stay behind. So Woman settled in more comfortably and chirped ever so softly, slowly eating from the spoon Virgil offered him, successfully conveying that he didn't feel up to the task yet. At least, Janice seemed to buy it. Remus was not impressed. But their minds were linked, so even if he didn't hear the exact thoughts, he could sense the intent. Well, all right, Janice lied, turning to Virgil. Don't let anyone in. I'll be back tonight. They promised. Virgil let out a sigh and nodded. Yes, Jay, I know, they assured them. Janice gave Virgil a long look and then glanced towards Roman, with a playful smirk. Keep an eye on him. They winked, making Virgil groan. Janice chuckled and then vanished in a flash of yellow light. Roman jumped up with a happy chirp. You're welcome, he sing-tongued. Virgil chuckled as Roman showed off how he could now hop down to the bird bath, which he took full advantage of. It would be nice to actually be clean again. You little trickster, put on a little performance for us, huh, Princey? He scolded playfully. Roman paused his bat to give a confirming nod before focusing on cleaning his feathers. Well, thanks, Virgil said as he walked through the room to one of the desks. He took some scrolls and books from a drawer and started studying them. Well, it looked like he was going to study, but he soon turned sideways in his chair to talk to Roman. I'm just. When I said I didn't talk to my parents since I was 10, after I figured out how to shift in a cat, Janice would take me to the market in my village, and he'd let me spend some time with them. They don't know it's me. I have a little brother, 6 years old. Remy. Cute kid, Virgil explained. Roman paused his spading to listen. Clearly, Virgil had been needing to get a lot off his chest for a long time now. He felt a little bad that Virgil would possibly regret being so open with a stranger when the curse broke. But for now, he wanted to return Virgil's kindness. I love seeing them, but it's hard. I can't tell they miss me, and I miss them. But I can't say anything 'cause Jay worries that if other people caught us. Back when I was still little, goblins would have definitely taken me back in by force since Jay was still so young. And even now they might want me to join them rather than be a solo witch. They make goblins nervous, because of types like Matei. I've seen Jay be visited by tons of goblin members trying to convince him to join them rather than live here by their own rules. It's. They can force them, but they'll never let it go. The villagers would likely claim Jay cursed me with the black magic and then kidnap me or something and turn and run them out. Not all, but some. So I get why, but it still sucks. Virgil sighed. Roman, meanwhile, had gotten out of the bed, shook himself out, and hopped the fastest way he could find towards Virgil's desk, and jumped on his saber's hands, fluttering his wings to get a little extra distance, chirping in comfort as soon as he landed. Virgil chuckled and brought Roman up to touch their foreheads together. Thanks, he said softly, before putting Roman down in a spot that had no papers. If I get this right, though, they muttered before looking up, I might be able to change some stuff for the better. Roman looked down and chirped curiously. Virgil didn't look up, instead moving some papers around, studying something that looked like a spell scroll and writing something down on a similar-looking scroll, this one unfinished. 3 weeks ago, two men came here looking for Janice. They were out, but I wasn't feeling up to going out that day. I wasn't supposed to let them in. Virgil looked up. But they seemed so. They were going against the king's orders coming here. The princes are missing, you see. Oh! Oh, now Virgil had Roman's complete attention. And the royal mage has exhausted their resources in trying and failing to even locate them, and they got desperate. They aren't supposed to contact lone witches, but they tried every coven already. And so I said I could help. I had an idea. You can only ward against spells you know. So if I made a new locator spell, then no words could stand against it. It's not complete yet. Most locator spells are based on the material. Their favorite handkerchief or a hair would be used for those. But if I looked for the person they are, and not their physical being, Virgil explained, and Roman was enthralled by his focused expression and the steady cadence of his voice. He'd been looking for them. Logan was delighted to know this. Virgil, Patton, and Logan would have come for them soon. Of course, he was glad the timeline was sped up, but knowing that no stone was left unturned, it was nice to know they hadn't given up on them. And it was nice to know that he'd been on Virgil's mind. Their soul, for lack of a better term. Downside, I gotta get to know them first to work properly. He sighed as they pushed the papers aside and revealed a poster that held an expertly crafted portrait of Roman and his brother. Roman jumped over to it and jumped on in place on the image of his face, chirping excitedly. That's Prince Roman. He's going to be king one day. If we find him. People are nuts for him. And birds too, it seems. Virgil huffed as he gently tapped Roman on his beak, prompting the cursed prince to stop in his tracks. I guess he's kinda handsome, they admitted reluctantly, as he leaned back and looked away awkwardly. Roman cocked his head. Virgil stiffened and turned to him. I mean, objectively. They're both, like, handsome or something, he said awkwardly. But that's not what a spell requires. That's their physical being. It doesn't matter if he has nice hair, or a kind smile, or... Virgil shook his head, and Roman was glad no one could see him blush now. Virgil didn't have the luxury of feathers. That hid his flushed skin. What matters is that Remus's note-taking blows, but what little sense I can make out of it is absolute genius. If anything, enemies won't be able to figure out his strategies even if they send spies right to the war room. He's kind of brilliant, really, though definitely also a certain amount of crazy. But not in a we all might die way. Woman wished Bert could smile. He'd be grinning from ear to ear. Virgil had his brother down pretty well. He could hardly wait to hear what he'd learned about him. He also has a bit of a weird sense of humor, but the important part is that he loves to joke around and mess with people for some wholesome fun. I guess I'd kinda get along with him or something. Virgil shrugged. Woman was glad. Humor was definitely not for everyone, and often an acquired taste. Roman, he thinks very highly of himself, if the way he holds himself for portraits tells me anything. Virgil mused, much to Roman's disappointment. That was not the conception he wanted Virgil to have before their proper meeting, but it's not entirely unearned. Oh? He's compassionate, cheesy romantic. He likes my favorite poet, you know, Virgil said in a much softer tone, a blush dusting their cheeks still. Woman perked up at that. Virgil liked the poems of W.E.D. too? Definitely very sold on the romance bits, though. I get the impression he feels kinda lonely, honestly. Might do well to lean on his friends. That's the massive hypocrite, Virgil chuckled. He takes his duties seriously. I can tell from his notes. It feels like he's too hard on himself. I've received all his notes and the amount of first drafts that were good, like seriously good, but scrapped for Lord knows what reasons. And I'm a very critical and picky person. I get being a perfectionist. This is my sixth attempt at getting the scroll just right. Virgil looked actually saddened. Woman was speechless. No one had seen him like that in years. Even Remus didn't seem to get him like this. His brother had been teasing earlier about Roman liking Virgil's charm, but it also been kind of serious. They both knew that Roman had a soft spot for gallant heroic types, and Virgil had been a favourite in the truest, most selfless sense. So yeah, he'd had a bit of a crush already, and wouldn't have hated a chance to court them once they were set free. But this, Virgil knew him, the true him, and he didn't think him weak or disappointing. If he'd seen all those notes and study books. Anyway, Virgil stated firmly, I was going to ask Jay's help to figure out the spell at first, I swear. But I thought, if I can do this on my own, maybe it'll prove that I can handle myself. Maybe I'll get like a medal or something that'll allow me to go visit my parents without feeling like I need to hide. Or at the very least, will give me the opportunity to let them know I'm doing well and that they can be proud of their eldest, despite everything. Pat and Lo would bring them a message from me, right? Woman couldn't wait to tell Virgil of all the wondrous rewards that awaited him upon their return home. He'd personally see to it that even if Virgil decided he didn't want to be around Roman or Remus at all, he'd be content for the rest of their days. I'm not going to pretend this is entirely altruism, Virgil pointed out. I am hoping Janice will lay off and that something good will happen for me if I do this by myself. But aside from that, Jay might think it's too risky if I ask. And if I turned them away, Patton and Logan looked like they were very close to just trekking through the woods and hope to run into a clue. This way, at least they had something in the works to help them that got them to wait a bit longer. Virgil sighed and looked to Roman. I'll have to babysit them as they go collect the princess, won't I? He wondered. Roman couldn't help a chuckle and nodded. You really understand me, don't you? Virgil mused sadly. Roman nodded. Would he put it together? No wonder Mattei stole you too. No worries. Janice didn't find anything yesterday, but I know he'll find Ali soon. You'll be home before you know it, Virgil promised. Woman perked up surprised, distracted from his disappointment that it didn't click yet for Virgil. Yesterday? It'd been early afternoon when they fell asleep. Oh yes, you two slept for a long time. I even had time to go out for some treats, Virgil grinned as he leaned away, digging through the pocket of his cloak, which was draped over the edge of the chair. I go for walks when Janice is out sometimes. I know I probably shouldn't, but anyway. You want seeds, berries, or bugs? He asked, as he put down two glass jars and a little fabric pouch. One of the jars was filled with what looked like fresh berries, picked with such care that there was barely a bruise or imperfection to be seen. Rumor was honestly touched, though he didn't even want to look at the other jar and entertain the thought of eating anything out of that one. Remus would happily volunteer. Virgil's effort in collecting this spread gave him the idea that he's never had a meal prepared with as much care as this one. He looked between the berries and the seeds. Okay, no bugs for the prince, Virgil allowed as he took out some seeds and berries and laid them down for Roman to enjoy. Thank you, Roman chirped before starting to peck at the meal. Your bath really did you good. Your feathers are nice and fluffy and shiny now that they have dried, Virgil mused. Roman looked up to him and puffed his chest, unable to help the instinctive show of pride. Virgil chuckled. Yes, you are a very handsome, Princey. When you are properly fed and looked after, at least, he assured him, stroking Roman's chest with the back of his fingers. See, Virgil said as he summoned a mirror from the other side of the room so Roman could take a look. He did look good. Feathers had almost completely grown back during his nap. He probably only saw a difference because he knew to look for it. And they did look soft and shiny. Good! He would hate to turn back while still in a weakened state. Imagine if that translated to his human form and Virgil first saw him in person with bald spot and a feeble body. No, that wouldn't do. This looked much better. Virgil chuckled. Women supposed that seeing a bird pose in front of a mirror to see if all his feathers were up to standard was amusing. Like I said, you're a very handsome bird. And if you want to stay that way, you gotta finish your lunch. So go on, Virgil said as they nudged him back to his seeds and berries. He had a point. So Roman let Virgil continue their work. When he finished his meal, he decided to explore a little. Maybe try to see if his wings could lift him off the ground for a bit. He did, and it worked. Not much and not long, but it was progress for sure. He was just debating on whether it would be okay to interrupt Virgil for a little bit, to show him or if he should let him keep working when he heard Virgil hiss in pain. He hopped towards the desk as fast as he could, sort of flying the last bit there. Virgil had cut his finger on something, it seemed. Completely forgetting that Virgil was perfectly capable of healing himself, Woman did what he always did when someone got hurt around him. He sang a song, and moments later, Virgil's finger was healed. You sang me better? Virgil nodded, surprised. Woman let out a proud chirp. Virgil chuckled and stroked Roman over his head, always slow in his approach so Roman could turn him down. But Roman eagerly offered his head for some affection. He'd been deprived of genuine human contact for a long time. Laying next to his brother had helped, but it was not enough. Guess music is its own kind of magic, huh? Suddenly Virgil's finger paused. Music, he mused, some kind of realization dawning on them. Virgil pulled his hand away to shuffle through the papers, his face ecstatic. That's it, Princey, you found it! He exclaimed in jubilation. I can find the princess! Virgil said incredulously, jumping up and running to a full-length mirror. Lord Logan's study, he called out, making the glass ripple like water and the image shift to a familiar study. Woman could see a figure sitting at a desk, another peering over his shoulder. Logan! Virgil called. Virgil! Both figures chorused as they jumped up and rushed to the mirror. Woman's heart leapt with longing when he saw his old friends again. They were healthy, looked tired and a little sad though. They were happy to hear from Virgil, but they seemed okay. Oh gosh, Virgil, do you have news? Patton asked eagerly. Virgil nodded. I figured out the final piece. Bring the anchors I asked, and get over here as fast as you can, he insisted. Woman couldn't help a little excited hop. They were coming here? Are you sure? Your mentor, Logan wondered. What can they do? The spell is complete now. Jay won't keep you guys from finding the princess if I've already done all the work. The risk part is over. Just get here and with some luck, you can find your friends by morning, Virgil insisted, wringing his hands nervously. Oh, Virgil, that is wonderful. We'll be there soon, Patton promised. The woman saw Logan's shoulders relax and all tenseness leave his face. Yes, Virgil, this is indeed most fortunate. Thank you again, he said sincerely. No problem. See you too soon, Virgil said and ended the spell. Woman chirped and hopped around excitedly. He couldn't wait to tell Remus they'd see their friends soon. Oh, he hoped he'd make it back in time. Then they could see the look on their faces together. Even if Virgil didn't catch on to their true identity, once the spell was cast tonight, all would be clear. They'd be back to their true selves in no time, and Roman could properly woo Virgil. Suddenly, Roman was lifted off his spot on the desk by Virgil, cupping his hands to make a little safe cocoon for him as he held him close to his chest and made a little spin. Oh, I wish I had something special for you, Virgil said as they put him down on the desk and sat down, letting his chin rest on his folded arms. You deserve it, you little hero, he said fondly. Roman chirped proudly and puffed his chest. He was not going to turn down praise. Virgil chuckled. Well, I don't have a snack, but I know a little bird who likes pets, he reasoned. Roman hopped happily and offered his head. Knew you'd be game, Virgil smirked, as they gently stroked Roman's head. We're home, a voice called from downstairs. Roman recognized it to be Janice. Virgil got up and opened the trapdoor in the floor. Did that poor excuse of a witch come by? The older witch wondered as he came up and set a set of stairs. Remus jumped out of his bucket and sort of flew to the ground. Then he helped himself over their parkour to the desk to sit himself next to Rowan. Guess what, Provo? He said eagerly. What is it, Remus? I could see the castle from the village. We're maybe a few hours of horseback away from home. And hot stuff thinks our catty savior is looking for us. He grinned. Well, he is. Logan and Button are on their way here, and he'll cast a spell to find us. We'll be home by morning lights, Roman added happily. Remus could only express his excitement at this by hopping around his axis a few times. Roman joined him. It felt fitting. Knowing they were so close was actually extra exciting. His parents were so close. Could he reach them with a song? If he sang his heart out, would they know he was close by and on his way home? No, Virgil said, drawing Roman's attention back to the conversation between the two witches. Virgil approached the desk and tapped the desk, drawing Remus's attention. He showed Remus his options for a snack while getting some berries and seeds for Roman ready. Ooh, I've always wondered what those crawlers taste like, Remus exclaimed as he tapped the insect jar with his beak. Roman pointedly turned his back. He didn't need to see that. He was glad Virgil hadn't collected those things for nothing, and that Remus had a chance to indulge his curiosities without being scolded by their tutors or something. But he didn't need to see it. I think they might be afraid that you will introduce them to the business end of your staff if they show up. They know they can't claim these two as theirs. We didn't take anything that belonged to them. They can't do a thing. Virgil reasoned. You are probably right, Janice allowed as they leaned against the potion station. Roman noticed Virgil shifting. He hopped over and gently nudged his hand in encouragement. Virgil smiled and stroked Roman over his head before taking a deep breath, straightening his back and turning to Janice. So, Jay, I wanted to talk to you about. Suddenly there was shouting outside. Hello? We seek to be permitted entrance to these towers by the maid Janice. That was Logan. Please let them in. I'll explain, Virgil pleaded in a hurry. Janice quirked a brow. Enter, he called. And just like that, there were three figures extra in the room. Patton, Logan, and Thomas. Thomas was the grandson of their mage. Good kid, very clever with alchemy. So with magic. It worked! Thomas smiled brightly. Indeed it did, though I still doubt the necessity of magically traveling from the base of the tower to the top, Logan had muttered, adjusting his glasses. Sorry, I got excited after I got us so far. I was feeling it, you know, Thomas argued sheepishly. Besides, you said that every second gained is welcome, he added in a hurry. And why is that, may I ask? Janice wondered with curved eyebrow. Janice? Virgil started as he went to stand between the new arrivals and Janice. What I was trying to say earlier is that Women watched them take a deep breath, roll their fists at their sides, and close their eyes, and Lamb roll off his next sentence. I took a commission to find the princess. Jonas just folded his arms in front of his chest and waited for what else would follow with a bemused smile. And I know you don't like people knowing I exist, but I'm 21. I haven't talked to anyone other than you since I was 10. I know you mean well, but sooner or later you gotta trust me to look after myself. And I already finished the spell, so you can't possibly send them away knowing that you have a way to bring the princess back home right here, Virgil argued. You're right, Janice nodded. And before you. Wait, what? Virgil said, shocked. You're right. You are more than ready to take on the outside world. Standing up to me like you are doing right now proves that. More than anything. I'm very proud of you, they told him. Virgil's posture relaxed and he allowed a grateful smile. Virgil, the spell? Logan insisted. Virgil's eyes widened and he spun around. Right! You two got the anchors? He asked, holding out his hands. Logan handed Virgil a signed notebook Roman immediately recognized as Remus. Patton gave Virgil a scarf Roman had made his friend. Okay, I'll bind a spell to these objects. When you find them, you give them to the prince they belong to, and then the spell will come to an end. Until then, you will see a thread connecting the item to the person it is tied to. You follow that line, carefully. It will show you the shortest way, not the safest way, so keep that in mind. Any question? Virgil asked. Yes, why are you talking as though you are not coming along? Logan wondered. Yeah, kiddo, if I know Roman, and I do, he'll insist on thanking you right away, before coming home even, and Remus too. Patton insisted. Woman couldn't quite see Virgil's face, but he thought he saw a little blush. "Ah, I don't. It's okay, Virgil. You'll sneak out and follow them to make sure they are okay anyway," Janice pointed out. Virgil simply turned around, flustered, and headed to the desk. He laid down the objects. Making Roman and Remus hop back to make room, he picked up the parchment with the spell on and looked at Roman. "Can you sing for me, Princey?" he asked softly. Roman nodded and started singing as soulfully as his little bird body could muster, and to his utter fascination, the song itself, not the magic he wove into it, mixed with the words Virgil muttered and the symbols he was drawing in the air, as their eyes glowed brighter than ever before. The energy of the spell ruffling the cursed twins' feathers and rustling Virgil's hair and clothes. Woman's magic made its way through the room to find souls to encourage as Roman intended. And then the spell ended. The book and the scarf glowed purple before glowing green and red respectively. "There," Virgil said, still sounding nervous. "That should do it." Logan and Patton flanked him, and laid their hands on the anchors, letting out a shocked gasp as they no doubt saw the threads going straight to the two birds sitting on the table. Roman and Remus jumped up at attention. "Galaxy padre!" Roman greeted happily. "No gun, Pepiton!" Remus called out. Virgil was still none the wiser. "Yes, Prince, you did a great job," he smiled as he picked Roman up and brought him face to face with him. "Virgil, that bird." Roman didn't get the time to tell Virgil the truth. "Quite amazing, isn't he? Rescued him from a nasty witch. He'll have to come home soon, though. I'll be sad to see him go," Virgil admitted. "Thank you, Princey," he told Roman. "Guess I'll be meeting some more princes soon." He smiled softly. "You are a wonderful assistant and a good patient," they mused as they lowered them, bent down their head, and kissed Roman on the crown of his feathered head. Instantly, Roman felt something magical happen. There was a shift in his very being. Virgil stepped back in surprise, pulling his hands away as Roman felt himself float and grow and change, and then he was standing in the room, looking at the astonished crowd. He could only grin and embrace his friend. "I'm back! Oh, joyous day! I have so much to tell you two, but first—" He let his friends go, who hadn't had a chance to even process what had just happened. He took a step forward, towards his savior, the one who broke his curse without even trying. Remus did agree, though. He chirped loudly to get his brother's attention. Roman rolled his eyes and turned around. "So impatient," he sighed as he picked Remus up and kissed his head as well. When Remus turned back, he was wearing his old clothes, but with the addition of a feathered cape in the green and silver that had marked him in their curse. Only now did Roman realize he'd gotten a similar garment out of his broken curse. "Neato!" Remus grinned. "Now I'll give you the room," he blinked to Roman before grabbing Logan and Patton by a hand each and disappearing down the stairs with them, followed by a confused Thomas and a hesitant Janice. Roman sighed and turned once again to Virgil. The witch was still staring at him, his mouth slightly agape. Roman smiled and took a step forward, his heart pounding, a blush already forming. He couldn't help it. A human heart loved far deeper and more complex than a bird heart could handle. So the crush that had developed almost from the moment he'd seen Virgil turn into a human in that cave just hit him in the face even stronger than it was before. Virgil suddenly snapped out of his daze and bowed hurriedly. "My prince," he said with a flushed face. Woman felt for Virgil. He was probably going over every interaction they'd had so far, now with the knowledge that Roman had been a cursed human the entire time. "Virgil, please, call me Roman. I owe you much, not just for getting me out of that prison, but for your kindness as you nursed us back to health, and your dedication to finding me as well. Rest assured I shall see to it that your every wish is fulfilled. Your family can come live in the capital, nay, the castle. Our mage needs an apprentice to take over from him in a few years. I'm sure you and Janice will make for excellent successors. Of course you must discuss all of that with them, but first—" He approached Virgil carefully and slowly reached for his hand, giving him the chance to reject him. which he didn't. He took one of Virgil's hands in both of his and brought it to his heart. Virgil, I know this is sudden, but would you do me the kindness of giving me the chance to enjoy your companionship? To maybe, if you would find yourself willing, one day enter a courtship with you? And if I were to truly be lucky, one day maybe consider becoming my king, he whispered. Virgil flushed bright red. You don't know me, he exclaimed, shocked. Woman nodded, which is why I asked for friendship first. I realized that proposing right away would be moving too soon. Despite your fondness for me, he smirked knowingly. Virgil looked away. Apologies. I meant to tease, not to offend, he assured him. Not offended, Virgil muttered before looking up. If I were to say no, would my family? Oh, of course, all my other offers stand completely separated from my request. I would never trap you like that, Virgil, he swore. I learned all too well what it's like to live in a cage, he said sadly. Virgil laid his hand over Woman's, and the crown prince smiled in appreciation. Okay, I'd like to be a friend. Virgil and Janice both moved into the castle soon after. They quickly found their place in the royal court and felt at home. Virgil got a kick out of picking his family up in a fancy carriage for the whole community to see. The reunion was heartfelt, and Virgil quickly learned that he loved being a big brother. And as for the lovebirds, it took a while, and Roman sometimes struggled with his patience, but friendship did turn into courtship, which led to engagements and a wedding for the ages. And King Roman had to admit the wait was well worth it. Wow, Virgil said, honestly impressed. Wow good or wow bad? Roman asked nervously. The story was great, but the wow was because I've never thought you'd write a story like that and not have the prince just sweep the witch off their feet and kissing them as soon as they transformed. That shows a lot of growth, he said. Roman smiled, blushing just a little. Well, you've taught me that patience can be very rewarding and, more important, healthy, he said. Virgil smiled as his born friend fondly and ruffled his hair. "Aw, look at you," he teased. Woman let out a laugh and leaned in for a kiss which Virgil happily provided. Luckily, I don't have to wait any more, Woman said as they broke the kiss. Never again, Virgil agreed as he pulled Roman back in.